Hello everyone and welcome to Key Culture Podcast. My name is Niilo Tarnanen and I'm co-hosting this show with Matei Georgiou. Hello Matei.
Hi.
Today we have two guests, two professionals of music who have experience in working across the genres. Namely, Hanna-Maria TUOMELA, a singer-songwriter with artist name Maaria, a backing vocalist, a choir and ensemble singer, amongst others in Helsinki Chamber Choir, and she has also worked as a DJ. Hello, Hanna-Maria.
Hello, nice to be here.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you. And then we have Tuukka HAAPANIEMI, who is a singer, basso profondo solist, and a founding member of a cappella group Club for Five. Hello, Tuukka.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you for asking me to join.
Yeah, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks.
And so, if you want to have more information about the guests, more than you will acquire during this episode, please check the websites that are mentioned in the video description. But so, in order to get started, probably, could you tell the audience a bit more about yourselves? First, what's your relationship to both popular and classical music? Let's start with Hanna-Maria.
Okay, so that's a very nice question. Because I feel feel love for both genres and all kinds of music genres, and I was born to a family where my dad is a classical composer, modern composer, and my mom is a cellist. So it was quite clear that I would be surrounded with more classical music. And all my childhood, I was just immersed in classical music, and I also studied classical piano. And until maybe at the age of in high school, I started realizing that I was looking for some new sounds, and I got really enthusiastic about Björk music because it was kind of avant-garde, and so through Björk I started to be very interested about indie pop, and then I started just going more and more into the pop category, and then I got jobs for singing background vocals for different artists, and then I have always composed a little bit, and my style of composition has always been more into pop or indie pop, whatever you want to call it, or alternative pop. And now I have found myself in a situation where I'm completely and purely, I have to say, pop. Like what I do is mostly like concentrated on pop style, and my songs are Finnish pop.
Just a small thing to remind our audience that on one of the purpose of this season is to have people who have various backgrounds and not just bring classical musicians to the podcast. So we this time we wanted to bring also someone who works also in the pop music industry to see how their field works and how they relate to our field.
Yes, good addition actually, Matei. I kind of forgot to say that in the introduction. But yes, how about Tuukka? What's your relationship about this genres, and what do you love most in these styles?
Kind of the similar that Hanna-Maria. I was surrounded by classical music all my youth. I started to play the violin when I was 6 years old, and I changed to viola when I was 12. So I grew in this orchestra, string orchestra world, and all my studies were the classical music studies. Then in my late teens, maybe because I listened to all kinds of music, mainly this jazz fusion type of music, like Chick Corea or Dave Weckl or that kind of rhythmic jazz, and I also sang in choirs. My whole youth, I was a boy soprano in a girls' choir, and in my late teens, I found Bob McFerrin, who became the most influential voice to me. And so I started to experiment my own voice through the Bob McFerrin style of making music. And I also played drums in a jazz trio. So I got the best, if you can call it, the best of both worlds. So I was very heavily influenced by this deep classical tradition, and all those the guys that I played in that orchestra are, 95% of them are professionals today. So as a soloist or playing in various orchestras, and then this if you call it pop music, I've never actually studied pop music, although I did study music education, and pop music is one of the things that you do study when you study to become a music pedagogue. But the thing I do with Club for Five, for example, the singing and the style that I do there, I've somehow developed myself. So, but my heart lies in both worlds.
It's nice to hear that. Actually, it sounds like both of you had some, let's say, strong role model that made you start searching for your own voice and your own place in the music world, if I got it right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Definitely. And both of the Björk and Bob McFerrin have distinct voices. They are completely different than anything other.
Yes.
Now that we know a bit about yourselves, we should ask probably, how does your professional life look like today? If we don't count, let's say, the pandemic right now. So what's a normal day of someone who works in the pop industry, if such a day exists? Let's start with Hanna.
Well, I think it goes very much in periods for all the people in this field. You have the times when you concentrate more on the creative side and you are composing and working on your album or upcoming releases, and then there are times when you are more practicing for upcoming gigs. So the days will look like very different depending on what's the need. And it would be whether I would be composing all myself or with a group, like a co-write session. I would be working on my text and music and sending it to other people and getting their influence, because I have found it very useful, especially in the stuff that I do now, to get a good surrounding of people that you can trust and with who you can kind of switch ideas, exchange ideas. And but if I would be practicing or doing some touring, then touring takes a lot of time. So you pack your stuff and car and you drive, and especially Finland is such a big country that it takes a long while to travel from place to place and to do the sound check and go to the hotel and then make yourself ready and then come back for the gig and then do the show, and the shows are very late. Sometimes I think the latest show that I have had is like after 1 o'clock in the morning. It was so like the crowd was pretty like in a zone already at that time of the night. Yeah, so it depends a lot. the working days are very, very different from one and another. And then I also teach singing, so that also I might have some very routine kind of normal kind of weeks where I mostly teach or just do work on my own. And then I would say that the touring, well, right now it feels like very distant, like the touring kind of world and life. It feels like ages ago, and hopefully it will start to come back into the routine. But yeah, so that kind of life.
Are you still doing, let's say, classical music? Because I know that you sang, actually I remember you sang in one of my pieces some years ago in the choir. So are you still doing that as well, or you're only concentrating on pop?
Yeah, recently I've been concentrating only on pop because I found that, well, it was more practical. Sometimes you know that when you have too many projects in the air, then it takes some energy especially from the creative side. So I had to kind of strip down my calendar a little bit and try to really concentrate on the creative work to be able to actually release some music, because I was just like doing this and that and nothing really happened. So I did this I stopped singing in the classical stuff a few years ago already. Yeah, but I really enjoyed it because it was something really refreshing, and I did it for a long time. And as I forgot to tell earlier that I also have studied only classical music, and I was singing in classical choirs until just the pop kind of world. And also I studied music education, so the pop world came there as well. And now for living, I am only working basically for the pop style, if you can say so.
If also good that you brought that up, because one reason why we wanted to have you guys is because we wanted to discuss with people who have worked and have experience in both pop and classical music industry to some extent, so that we can have a fruitful discussion and comparison, that we don't have just one side or the other. All right. How about the same question for Tuukka?
Well, no day is similar. So and it depends. Like Hanna-Maria said, that it goes periodically. So when and if I'm talking about Club for Five, so when we are preparing for a tour, for example, with either it's our own tour, or we tour with a big band, or we tour in a foreign country or something like that. We have rehearsals for that material or that show, and then the biggest show that we have yearly is obviously the Christmas tour that we have. So that takes I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks to all together to arrange and rehearse and do the show. But other than that, it's actually so that I'm thinking that we have like two sides of Club for Five. We have the artist Club for Five, who does records and who do the shows and stuff like that, and new music and cover music. And then we have this entertainment kind of cover band Club for Five, which does corporate gigs and performs in that sort of sense. So we are not we don't have to concentrate just in our artistic path, but we can somehow manage to do a little bit both. For me personally, Club for Five is the main profession. We are entrepreneurs, or that's how we pay our houses and cars and insurances and our life. And then in addition to working with Club for Five, I still do this what you would call classical music. If someone just remembers me and asks me to do a choir gig, and if I'm free, I'm probably going to go to that bass line and just open my mouth and then do some low stuff, or I do voiceovers or cartoons like dubbing things and stuff like that. So everything related to using the voice. So I don't have a normal day. My day is filled with different kinds of projects, and also when I'm not doing creative work, music work, we are taking care of our business, our firm, which is also it takes a lot of time.
Sure. So since you both said about how the working time is divided between classical and pop or only pop, let's go to another question connected to this. So as you have insight into both these worlds, classical and pop, what do you see as the most important dividing factors between these two? And on the other hand, are there some aspects in which these genres have more in common than one might suppose? Let's start with Hanna.
Well, I'm thinking the similarities are many actually, because like when you are practicing for something, you do it with as much you do it as thoroughly as you would do it in a class for compared to classical field. And you have to organize rehearsals the same way. You have to think about logistics in the same way. You have to think about budget in the same way. But what is different, maybe from my point of view as a songwriter, singer-songwriter, is that my work towards the audience is much more frank and much more direct through social media. And that is a very important part of my work. So I consider social media as important part as the music, actually, because it's creating the possibility to even perform, is to be connected with the people that follow you on social media. And that takes a lot of time and work.
Yeah, can you say something about that? Like, what do you do, for example, with social media?
Well, I have to update. I have Instagram. I have TikTok now. I have Facebook, obviously, and yeah. So I have to do content, different kind of videos, or just keep them updated on my artistic life, and even kind of give something even little bit personal, so that people have something to grasp on, because if you keep it only strictly professional, they might feel that they are far away, and that makes you not interesting in a way. So of course not telling everything about, but just telling a little bit, so that they have a feeling that I'm a human being and I have feelings, and that's why they want to hear my music, because they have something to relate to. And I think that part of the work is different at least from my experience. I'm sure there are also classical artists, performers who are very keen on their social media and how do you say, the vuorovaikutus in English? What is that?
Interaction.
Yes,
communication.
Exactly. The communication, interaction with the audience. So that has been different for me. I would say that. What do you think, Tuukka? Have you seen any differences?
Well, I was thinking about the social media part is definitely one that came to mind, that people in the pop or rock or jazz genre might have more buzz going on in the social media life compared to some classical soloists or classical, orchestras or houses or opera singers or whatever. Then I was thinking about the repertoire, because when you are a pop, rock, jazz artist, you are bringing yourself to the table. You are making new music. You are not just interpreting something that has been, from the 16th, 17th, 18th century, but you are creating something new, not just a new interpret, but new music, and that's different.
That's true. Very true.
Very different. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to keep an eye on what's going on. You have to be much more feel the buzz and get influence.
Because I think that there can be, but there are very few opera-based singers who compose opera, or a violinist who composes a violin concerto, or a pianist. You get the idea. So that's
I get it.
Yeah, that's kind of the main difference between a pop artist. Maybe, although a pop artist can have a composer, a lyricist, and so what. That is true. But I think that there are still more people who somehow influence the new music that they are making,
yes,
other than maybe in the classical world. It's not 100% that, but the balance.
I would actually like to stop to this question that we just touched for a bit longer time, because it's actually really interesting. Maybe also because both me and Mate were composers. This kind of started from the idea of using the social media, and I kind of started thinking into what extent this is actually about the question about being artist, or just working for somebody, and into what extent the distinction is about something else. I mean that, I don't know, some composers, I don't know if they do it as much. I mean, like composers in the classical and contemporary field are much more active, let's say, than what I am, or something in social media. Yeah, but I don't know if they still are that active as you probably need to be as a pop artist like you, Hanna-Maaria, or if a classical, let's say, string quartet would have that strong boost in the social media as, let's say, Club for Five as an ensemble would have. I think this is an interesting point to speculate a bit more about what all it tells. Is it only about that? How much it is about the communication with the audience aspect, and how much it is about this being an entrepreneur aspect that also you, Tuukka, mentioned. I think this is interesting. So I would ask you both, how much do you think this is because of some of these factors, and how much of not? Maybe you, Tuukka, go on, because you had the entrepreneurial point.
Yeah, I was thinking about, if you have a string quartet, like metaphor, if they would work with either composers themselves, or work with a composer, and they would do hi, we're rehearsing, or we're creating this, and we were thinking about these colors and how to do this and that. Would that have an audience? Yes, I think that would have an audience. It would not be the broad the audience feel that pop music would have, but I think that would go just so a bit deeper, that people would get, okay, that's actually interesting, that they are making choices. They are not handed the completely thought out material, or this is 100% like this. but they can influence about the music. They can somehow find differences and really then the audience would go deeper into the process of making classical music, other than just being in the audience and listening to, you know, rehearsed material and you're like, okay, this is like so.
Right. I was actually
So
thinking also that it still, like, sorry, Nilo, that it's still, the audience is bigger for pop music no matter what. So the string quartet can probably only go as much, but still you would saying that probably they would still do better if they decided to treat the string quartet, let's say, like an
Yes.
entrepreneurial business. And
Yeah, and somehow make it interesting. I follow the two guys, two set violin,
yes,
who are vastly popular, and they still do difficult stuff. It's not just, you know, the light classical thing, but they actually they have guests there, and they talk about theoretical things, and you know, they have 1-2 million followers. So it is possible, but they are very good at being, you know, a bit funny at times. They have this internet meme thing going
absolutely,
on,
absolutely.
and still they have a professional, very deep knowledge and talent about what they are doing.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I was thinking like that maybe me and Nilo come up with a couple of, let's say, simple stereotypical questions about pop versus classical, and you could like debunk them or explain them. Like, so let's say I was thinking about this entrepreneurial aspect, that the classical musician is always taught to just practice, and the pop artist is taught to, like, you know, present themselves. Is there some truth there?
I at the top of my head, I would say yes.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right. So this would be like a first problem or first issue. Then let's say another thing that I've heard many times is that studying classical music takes very long time, and it takes many, you know, like years to learn to play Rachmaninoff third piano concerto, but playing a couple of chords on a guitar and saying like making a bit of songs with that doesn't require much education. So you can become a guitarist and with a bit of vocals in 2 years, but you need to study piano for 20 years to play Rachmaninoff. So how's that?
I think there's some truth to it, but the thing that people don't realize is how freaking competitive the pop field is, how strongly you have to be making the way for yourself, how much work you have to do to perfect your songs, that you make a beautiful, touching, fun, amazing song with 4 chords. That requires a genius mind. It's not easy. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it.
Yes.
We haven't found another Beatles. I mean, it's such a difficult task to compete in the pop field that you have to be a genius to achieve that. Or maybe not genius, but you have to be practicing a long time, and you have to be very consistent. Because what I have been doing is I have been composing for my whole life, and I still think that I am learning some more and more and more about how to compose a good song. And what is the perfection, I think, in the pop field is how to make a good song. It's not about if your vibrato is beautiful or your fingers are very smooth, and it doesn't really matter. But if you can make a touching song, that's what people want. And you can even have your voice cracking, and that's actually wanted sometimes. So you have to show some character in that in there, and that's difficult.
I think what you're saying about the character, because earlier also you touched the subject of kind of you know, telling the story or having your own voice. So I think also what Tuukka was saying about making the decisions. So I think kind of owning your own artistry is something where there is clearly seems to be some sort of difference. So that in classical field, people are quite siloed in their own, let's say, professionalities. Like I'm expert in this, and I'm expert in this, and I'm expert in that, and kind of the composers are supposed to find the new cool ideas, and then the solists are supposed to make very interesting interpretations of them, and then the let's say the back musicians are just about to do what they're told, and then the conductors are there to keep everything together, to put it in a very simple way. So it sounds like, and maybe it's not always like this, but it sounds like that maybe in the way that that popular music is done, there is it. Let's say, of course, there are many ways of expertise in there also. And correct me if I'm wrong, but still you can kind of discuss more about what to do and how to do it. Whereas the typical classical way is maybe so, let's say, automatized that you don't necessarily have your own say in a way that might be interested to the to social media or to the wider audience. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I think they're very good points.
Yeah, we are just schooled to do our thing, and with that thing we should go to interview and get a job, and that's pretty much it. And well, I was actually...
but I think it's good to think this, because it's not necessarily very realistic way of doing stuff nowadays, especially when much of the interesting stuff is happening in the, let's say, in the free field. Actually, you need quite an entrepreneurial attitude to get anything done.
I was going to ask like two more stereotypes. One would be, and this is probably the one I want to hear about most just for fun, but the thing that has to do with, let's say, looks or dancing, or like, because I guess as a pop musician you have to work a lot on how you look, like I don't know, go to the gym or I don't know, like dance on stage. You can't just stay in one place and sing, or stay in one place and no.
Well, I would say,
I mean, this is one thing that
lot.
classical musicians don't do. Classical musician can just play violin and look however.
Well, it depends what kind of artist you
are. But they do. We composers don't, but the performers do. They do go to gym.
I think it's not required. I mean, think about Ed Sheeran. He's not this kind of... He's so popular and nobody cares about how he looks. You know, of course, the looks are part of your brand. It's about the branding, but it's not about if you have fat in your belly or not. It's about if you have a cool style in however you wear, what kind of colors you have, what kind of is the brand logo, what kind of is the brand image. And this is something that I hired professionals to consult me with my artistic, you know, my you know, this visual part of how my like album cover is going to look like, and how my web page is going to look like, how my social media should look like. It should be like all under the same kind of umbrella or the same kind of feel. And you can think about these things, but I don't think it's about how if you have a symmetrical face or not. It doesn't really matter. It has to be just good and fit well with the product that you have. The product is the music. Of course, if you have a musical singer or show singer, then of course you have to do the moves and everything, that's when you have that's when you have to think about your physics. But that's more related to a dancer's career and dancers' requirements, because you are dancing then.
Well, but I mean, I just watched Eurovision a couple of days ago, and like everybody who was there, like every artist was moving. Like you cannot stay on the stage and just sing. You have to like dance. You have to go there. You have to do this. You have to come back. You have to, and that's also something you have to work on. You can't just. It doesn't come like
Right.
this.
Yes, of course, it depends of the song and the genre and what you are looking for. Yes, of course, but it's not required.
The French Eurovision song, the soloist
Yeah, she
didn't
move much.
Yeah, she didn't move much. Maybe with the hands, but yeah, she was French, so that was good. But no gimmicks, no dancing, no, you know. And still, I really like the song. It was probably my favorite. The song itself.
Yes, dance music is some other genre, and then this chanson is something else. Then pop music is something else. So it depends what kind of niche you are performing in.
Yeah, and I think the looks. It doesn't hurt if you have good looks, because when you are on stage and you are doing your stuff, people will look at you, and if they like what they see, it's a good thing. But it's you don't have to, you know, be Mr. Universe or you know, you just have to have that type of something that people will like. Not everyone will like that, but some will. You have to find your own audience in the way that you will you present yourself how you like. You don't do it you don't do it for the audience. You do it in spite of the audience. You still do it, and when it's real, when the thing is what you love, when you put your heart to it, then you will find the people to do it with.
Right. And maybe the last point
that was so well said that it's hard to say anything after that. But probably you, Mate, had something to say.
Yeah. The last thing about this kind of, let's say, classical versus pop things was that about the entrepreneurial. So, like as I said, classical musicians probably just go to orchestra auditions, or they go to an interview to teach in a school. And some of them have some band sometimes, but not all that much, and at least not very successfully for 50 years, let's say. How is that from the pop perspective? Like, what does it mean to be like truly entrepreneurial, to make it as a pop artist? Like, what are the things you have to do?
Take risks.
How about Tuukka?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you have to take risks. It's you're kind of on your own, because I know that if you're talking about classical music as it's a big thing. It gets somewhat subsidized. So and you have these apuraha. You have you know
the grants
stuff. Yeah, your grants. Also, you could have caretakers. You can have, you know, rich people who will see that, okay, I love this person's art, whether it's sculpture or painting or music. I want to support this person, and they give money and they pay, and you know,
not very many of those though.
no, but still.
Yeah,
still,
I was just about to ask, like,
where?
Will this really happen nowadays in, at least in a country like Finland? Maybe
no, not
Dubai,
like,
but
yeah, maybe in Dubai or the States or something,
yeah.
You know, or maybe China. I don't know. But it's but classical music is somewhat subsidized, whereas pop music is not so much subsidized, and that's the main difference. That like Hanna said, that you will have to stand out. You will have to do, you know, something that the others are not doing, to have the audience who are willing to pay for your art. Whereas in the classical music, it's I'm not saying that it's automized, I'm just saying that that it would be the same thing that if you compose, you know, a contemporary, you know, piece, you know, a mini opera, and you will have no grants, no nothing, no subsidized money, anything. You have to rent the hall. You have to pay the musicians. You have to pay for the marketing. So it's a bunch of money that you have to spend, not knowing if anything is going to come back.
So
Yes.
that's
You know.
the risk aspect.
Yeah.
Yes. And in addition to that, I think it would be interesting to see some actual documents about the numbers. But I think most of the, I may correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the people in the classical field actually work in orchestras, right?
Orchestras and teaching, I guess.
Yeah. And in our field, I think there are so many small entrepreneurs. Like I have my own business, my personal own business. I don't have other people. I just like occasionally have to ask for favors for others, and I pay for them, but I don't have any workers in my firm, in my yeah. So I think it is possible to get a living, even though it's tight, but still like just touring and doing different kind of I don't know, getting, maybe if you get your song on the radio, you might get some money from the royalties and stuff like that. But as in the classical field, it's more probable that you are part of the already existing big institution or big thing.
Yeah, this is one thing that I've often heard pop musicians complain about, that you guys have your institutions, we don't have, stop complaining. But then you have the classical musicians who say, well, you guys play all these concerts and you just play 4 chords and everybody loves you and we don't have such big crowds and so on. So what's the reality there?
I think let's not go to the unhealthy way of being too jealous of each other.
I
would like to actually yeah, but what I would be interested to ask is into what extent you think that this let's say level of risk taking, because whatever you describe it, the non-classical world is less subsidized than the classical one. So into what extent it kind of affects the way that the artistic decisions are made, or does it affect the, let's say, the productional processes when you are, let's say, when you are rehearsing for a tour or when you're making a recording? Can you elaborate this?
Yeah, for sure it affects, and it can be a little bit sad, but at the same time it's just realities, you know, that you have to work with. If you want to work in this field, you have to take in consideration that, well, let's say an example, I was just working on my upcoming release. Well, we had to think about the length. First of all, the length of the song should be something around 3 or 4 minutes. Otherwise, it's too long for the radio. And the goal is always, in Finland, is always to go to the radio. And you hope and wish and pray that they will take you somewhere on a playlist, because that's the best way to get anything back from the thousands and thousands of euros that you pour into the production. And you have to pay the producer, mixer, and if you have any people playing on the record, you are paying them. You are paying for the photos, you are paying for the artist covers, you are paying for your web pages, you are paying for the mastering, mixing, what else? So you're paying a lot of money just for one release. And then that's why you hope that you get anything back. That's why you hope that you will get to the radio. That affects some of the decisions. It has to be, you know, in Finland, especially like such a small percentage of the music that is made that gets actually to the radio, and you have to analyze a little bit. So what could be the possible radio station that could play this? So should it be more into like younger pop and modern pop, or should it be more into kind of iskelmä, Schlager kind of or what is the audience? You have to think about the audience. Then you have to think about, for example, in the mixing, my manager was oh yeah, and you have to, so at some point the manager will take its cut. Then my manager was like concerned if the vocals were loud enough, because on the radio they need a mixing where the vocals can be really well heard. Because I was like happy with a lower, because I like to hear the band and the instruments and all the small details about it, but it was not loud enough. So we had to adjust the level of the vocals. So it actually affects the art, which I think in a way it sucks. It should not work that way. But at the same time, we live in a world like this, and you have to just deal with the facts that you have to have butter on your bread, as we say in Finnish.
So you need to be very aware of the context in order to do that kind of decisions that really will make you to the selection.
I think so. Yeah.
How about Tuukka? What would you say?
You have to make selections. You still should not sell your soul to that, because
and that's the difficult part. How to make it without faking it.
You still have to make. You still have to be true to your own self, true to your art, and then with these little fixes, you can make it that much more accessible. But it's because otherwise you are just doing this like a cover thing. You're just making music or making art to please the audience, not yourself, and that is not a long path.
Yeah, I think this relates a lot to the kind of issues. I mean, I as a contemporary classical music composer, I'm also dealing with kind of
for sure
how to keep true to your soul, but still do it in let's say as accessible or as so that it fits to the system to that much that it happens, because sometimes you need to compromise in order to get heard and get the other people interested. But on the other hand, if you're only pleasing the others, then you kind of vanish.
Yes,
who are
and
you then anymore?
And I have experienced that if you think too much about what the others are expecting or might expect, then actually, at least what happened to me is that my creativity just stopped. I was not able to work anymore. So I had to rebalance all my values. Like, why am I doing this? It's because I have a higher calling for this, and it's like deep inside of me. It's something innate that I cannot avoid doing music, because otherwise I would go crazy. So that's my values. You have to be very sure that you're not doing it for the money, or you're not doing it for pleasing, because otherwise you get lost. So I think this is something that many people struggle with and have to balance themselves all the time, because we still need money to live, and to be able to dedicate all this time for music, we need to have the time for it. So it's a tricky question.
I could ask a question from you guys. As classical composers, that in order to get your compositions out or available for a wider audience, would you have to make compromises with the difficulty? If it's a difficult piece to play in with an instrument, or it's a difficult piece to a singer, it has a 4-octave range or something like that, so you have just a handful of people who can perform it. Is that something that you would consider, or do you make it more accessible for cutting the corners, that if you are composing to a singer, you may be thinking that you are not going to use the extreme, high voices or low voices, but you are composing so that many more singers or performers could perform your music. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, you are. I think this is an important question, actually. Mate, maybe you want to start.
Depends how much time you have for this explanation. But
little.
I mean, I would say that I think there are some problems here in a way with our field, because I would say in our field there's a couple of contradictions. In the same time, you should be a rock star, like you should aim to being like do what you want and always like you aim also to get paid for this. You also aim to get performed for this. You also would like to have a bigger audience, but at the end of the day, you have to take the gigs, because in our field, there's not so much money that would pay for you doing the music. You should be happy with having a small audience, even though you cannot gather crowds. And in the same time, you should be yourself, but in the same time, you shouldn't get too criticized from the other composers, because then you don't write like everybody else, and then you're kind of not part of the system, and maybe then you don't get the grants. Yes, and of course you have to please the musicians also, because if musicians don't like what you play, they're not gonna play you again. I think it's a very hard mix to get right, in a way. To be yourself, to write so that people like it, to write so that the public likes it, to write so that the composers like it, to write so that the critics like it.
The critics don't like it.
They won't like it anyway.
Yeah, they don't like
whatever
it.
you do.
This was actually.
I would maybe.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would maybe to kind of contextualize this with the idea of context that I made as a previous comment to Hanna-Maria's point. I mean that for me personally, difficulty or complexity is something that doesn't really have a, let's say, straightforward answer, but it comes always from what is meaningful and what is necessary for the expression. And then of course I need to be very aware of at least of for who am I writing, or like who's gonna perform this. Of course it's easy in those rare cases where I'm gonna perform it myself, so then I kind of immediately know what feels good if I'm singing it or if I'm playing it. But then it always gets more complex if it's somebody else. And of course, it's really nice in solo pieces or duo pieces when you can really consult the musicians and be more interactive there. But the bigger the ensemble comes, the more you have to kind of rely to just the expectations that if I do this way, then the musician is probably feeling it this way. Because it would just be too complicated to check, did you like this? Did you know like, or not really like, but like, how do they feel it when they really do it? Because I think it's a certain kind of living in the body that the performers are human beings. So even if it's difficult, it needs to be difficult in some meaningful way, so that they kind of immediately get the point. This is the point, and even if it demands a bit more of rehearsing, it's worth it. But if they don't get the point, then why to do it? Because it would probably lead to a situation which is frustrating to both the performers and myself, and probably also to the audience that doesn't get the result I was looking for. Mate.
Yes, I've been waiting to ask this for a couple of questions already. So the follow-up about how much time, this is kind of the same question that Tuukka asked us, but so how much do you do as entrepreneurs who have to compete in a difficult field? How much do you check what, let's say, okay, this is what these other guys are doing. They have the same kind of profile like me, and I want to sing this kind of music. I want to do this kind of music, but I have to also be unique. So I have to make some changes, and so that I sell a different product than these guys are, but in the same time I have to be myself, and I don't do too many compromises. How much of that is part of what you do?
I think the more I develop, or the more I'm in the field, the less I think about those things, because of course you have to consider where is the gap that could be filled by you. Yeah. Yes, but when you start to, that's just some psychological stuff. If you start to look for the gap and modify yourself to fit the gap, it will not work. So what I found better for me was that I had to just do whatever I wanted to and find the right producer and do it so that I really like it myself. And it's just happened that it's different from the others. I think we'll see what the other audience thinks once the song is out, or when this podcast is out. So I think that's one of the main falling parts, where you can fall and crumble, where if you start too much looking for where is your gap. But of course the labels are looking for exactly that, and their mentality is signing only artists that fill the gap.
Tuukka.
Less and less when I get older, less and less. When we started doing this a cappella thing 21 years ago, we listened to the groups that were before us, and at the same time we were, you know, the field was full with new stuff, because we were learning ourselves. And but as we got older and developed our own style and way of doing, I don't listen to a cappella that much. I don't know. It's something that I'm. It's okay. This is horrible to say, but I'm not interested in a cappella music. I'm interested in music. I'm not interested in just about the way that we do the music. I'm not so into the instrument itself, but I'm more into the actual music, the inside of what we do. And for that, I don't need any other a cappella thing. I need musicians, I need art, I need, you know, composers, I need, you know, the world.
Right.
This could lead us to really many directions, but one question I really would like to ask before we stop is actually, is being a classically trained an advantage or a disadvantage in the pop world? You both described that almost all of your education is from the classical side, but then nowadays you kind of apply it to field that is somehow different for its rules, so to say. So have you met any problems because of this, or has it just been an advantage?
It's a thing that sometimes is even in the pop field. If you mention that you have a classical training and you come from the Sibelius Academy, then it's like a no. They don't even want to hear what you're going to play. So that's kind of a not because then it means that you have no personality and you're too trained. And as a singer-songwriter, then it feels like you're. Sometimes they are afraid that the more raw you are, the better. But I cannot say that this is maybe not the case for every label or so on who signs the artists, or radio stations who pick up the songs. For me personally, I think it has been a huge advantage, because I'm able to write my own songs. I'm able to make the demos on my laptop, and I'm able to arrange for, I can do voicings. When somebody tells me that you should be singing a little bit more like singing like this and this and this way, then I'm able to, because I'm trained in voice pretty much, then I know, okay, technically I know they mean this. So I'm more able to analyze what the wishes are maybe for me, and probably more able to even do it. But sometimes even for me, it has been the issue, like for my manager or the A&R, what you call A&R, this person who kind of is the overall producer of everything. He kept on telling me not to sing like a Disney princess and just keep it like just as relaxed as I can be. So that is something that is more talks to more to the normal audience, that the voice has to be like fragile or natural, just easy, and that's how to work in my field where I want to work for. But of course, the pop field also, for example, Saara Aalto, who is also as much pop as I can, I would say that I am. She's extremely classically trained as well, and
in the same department, actually, music education.
Yes. Yeah. She has been our student friend at the academy. So she, for example, she's actually using all of the things and even more. Like, her style is about the voice and how beautiful she can use the instrument. And for me, I'm going for more the Finnish pop style, which is not so much about the voice, but more about the story. So it depends what you want to do. But personally, I feel it has been a huge advantage, even though some people want to rip it off from me. I still...
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think for me,
how is it for Tuukka?
Yeah, I think for me it's not a disadvantage for sure. Mainly because the things I do require reading the music. So without my vast knowledge about music theory and skill as a prima vista musician, I would not maybe be here. Because the stuff that we do with Clefrophile, we write notes. We write very precise arrangements, and I must be able to read music. That's if I would not, that would take too much time. Too much, I don't have the energy to not be able to read the music that I'm doing. Although I must have also the courage to not have written notes and just play it by ear or whatever comes to my mind. But still, those structures and stuff, I really consider myself lucky to have this education as the solid classical background in music theory and how the stuff works.
Especially, I think this is interesting because both of you are singers, and let's say being an amateur choir singer of myself, and having always a bit of this kind of skeptical attitude towards the, let's say, narrow-mindedness of the classical vocal training. It's quite interesting to hear that nevertheless both of you think that you have had some advantage, but maybe the advantage doesn't come only from the, let's say, how to use the voice, but also from all the other sides of the classical education, about understanding about the theoretical subjects and so on.
Theory is very important, yes, and reading.
Yes, because some of my pupils in Kankaanpää have subscribed to this channel, listen very well, because everybody's saying that you should learn theory, and I teach theory, so everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it will lead you the way to all kinds of styles. When you understand how scales work, how the
chords, progressions.
Yes,
and
progressions,
they
exactly.
relate to each other.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you can analyze whatever music and just understand how it's made. It's not a secret. It's actually pretty simple how it's made. And then also what I think that whatever is your instrument, you should go when you study music, it's very good that you go very deep in at least one instrument, because it helps you to, first of all, get used to the work, how much it requires work and motivation. And then secondly, it helps your ears to develop, to become very, you can hear subtle and small things easier because you get trained. For example, I think it's good that I have a classical piano exam. I did the B exam, what we call in Sibelius Academy. And I thought that even though I never actually used the skills, but at least I got to train my ear and train how to make subtle changes. And so I'm able to use all that kind of knowledge, all the massive knowledge that comes with the music that you read, the music that you play. It's a kind of a hidden knowledge that you have all the time. And I think I'm using it all the time. So I think it's very good. And I teach also songwriting, and I find it that, well, the people who are not able to find the chords or do not understand anything about theory, it is difficult. It is more difficult for those people because they can write a nice song with the lyrics. They can be very nice and they can write a nice melody, but they have no clue how to make it how to fit in the chords. Of course, you can find someone to help you there, but it's nicer when you can do it yourself. So definitely it's a good thing.
I was thinking that music theory is kind of like learning a language, and the theory is like the grammar.
Yeah.
So when you have the grammar down, you can just, that's the base, and then you can add words and expressions and stuff like that, or if you don't have the grammar, the base, then you just have phrases or a couple of words or stuff like that you can still make yourself understood. But if you have to what's soveltaa, if you have to
arrange.
Right. If you have, if you really have to use, you want to use different emotions, I would say that you really have to have the grammar in you.
Yeah.
Not just phrases, not just a couple of words, but you really have to have the base for what you are doing. And analog to music, you can have these 4 chords. You can play them in a guitar and with a guitar and it sounds great, or with the piano because it's in tune and blah 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 blah. But if you don't understand what's happening, you are not going to get probably to the level you would maybe want. You can be in the bonfire level, and you can play Wonderwall and people will great but you don't have the you cannot create that much more. Maybe
I always like to tell my kids in school that music theory is like the driving school part of the theory part of the driving school, because many of them complained about theory and that it's like you guys want to drive the car without knowing how to drive the car, and like you don't know what are the signs on the street. You just see this is the red sign, this is the blue sign, but yeah, we don't know, but we know how the car works. So that's my visualization about trying to play an instrument or trying to be a musician without actually understanding the music theory behind it.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so we are soon running out of time. My final question today is, if you could bring some of the best practices as you have experienced as singers in the pop music scene or the scene of classical or contemporary music. So what would be the best practices that you would like to kind of switch between the fields? Who wants to start? Maybe Hanna-Maaria.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that I have learned since I was a child the importance of practicing and the importance of practicing also theory and the overall groundwork that you can do for music to get much more out of music. So that's really I cherish from the classical background. Then what I cherish now in the pop field is the easygoing interaction with the audience, which I appreciate. So it would be nice, or could be nice if the performing situations could. I have seen this going already, that they become less like majestic in a way. So they become more easygoing.
Less stiff.
Yes, less stiffness for the classical thing, and also less stiffness in the social media. So it could be much more flowing.
The part where you said
I get that.
The part where you said
Tuukka.
that you should practice and you should know the theory, I will put it as the first 10 seconds of this video so that everybody can hear it.
Yeah, good.
No, please, Mate, after that, no one will watch the video more than 10 seconds.
Yeah, practice. Yeah.
Share, like, subscribe,
share,
practice.
Yeah, practice.
And
Yeah,
go
yeah,
to your
that-
practice room now.
Yeah. That's the motto for the two-set violin. The practice. It's
Hey, it
Yeah.
worked out
Oh, really?
for them, so yeah.
yeah, good. Yeah, but there is truth about the practice thing, because I get questions about how to get a low voice, or what you have to do with to get a low voice, and then people asking are between 15 and 22, and I'll tell them that it's like going to the gym and you're doing muscle work, because it's muscle work, but it takes 10 years. So don't expect results in 2 weeks, but give it time. So because that's what's probably missing in some of the idols and pop stars and whatnot, that people see, okay, they just go to the stage and perform and they are ready. No, it takes years and
Yes.
years and years of practice to go this like sovereign thing, that it just happens. You don't just walk on the stage and just happen to be a great artist, but it takes years and years and years of dedicated work and practice.
Yeah.
And that's something that for me comes from the classical genre, because I played the violin, so you don't get anywhere in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
When you start the violin, the first 2 years are suffering for your parents, and then they might be like, okay, it's something is coming there, but yeah. So that from the classical perspective is the kind of like the it's not the morality, but it's the
Work ethic.
it's the work ethic. I'm not saying that in the pop world you don't have work ethic. You do. With all the greats do a ton of work. But it's not so visible. Maybe that maybe it should be made more visible, that if you want to really have a career, you have to work on it. Either it's in the classical field or in the pop field. You really have to make the hours. It's not just 2 weeks or an Instagram post.
Yeah.
It's years of hard work.
Amen.
How about to the other direction?
Other direction. Well, I think that Hanna's good at that, less of this stiffness and more, more mistakes, more, this everyday life, and not just performing in these cathedrals and big halls, and but take your solo performance or a trio or a quartet to a pub and play there, and more among the people. That's kind of the thing that because the classical music used to be the pop music of its era. That was the dance music. That was the one direction you came to see. It was Mozart, it was Bach, it was those guys 400 years ago, but still that was the popular music back then,
or at least some of that was.
For
example,
some of that was.
Like, yeah, I know Vivaldi was writing one concerto, kind of like pop music is done. We always make fun of pop music, like it's song after song after song. Like that's what composers were doing, concerto after concerto, one day, one concerto, and one performance, and never again.
Yeah.
I think this is actually kind of one of the issues, because get back to where we started. One of the earliest points that we got mentioned when we started comparing the fields was that nowadays the string quartets are not writing their own pieces, and maybe my question is, why not? If we go deep into the history and study how things have historically been, the question is maybe why not nowadays some piano virtuosos would write their own concertos and do with that.
Shut up, we don't have enough concertos anyway.
More the norm, and it's
if the pianist starts doing their concertos, we're screwed. So
well, kind of, but maybe they can't. So then we are needed anyway. I don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe this reveals some of the toxic things that we have inside of the classical music field too.
Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
Maybe it's time to end soon. And in order to stop this in a very stiff way, I want to apologize, but this is the first time I have ever written down the ending words. So let's see if I can do it from the notation. So this was an episode of Key Culture Podcast, and I want to thank our guests, Hanna-Maaria and Tuukka. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
And
with a bit of hope, maybe we do a part 2 for what we didn't finish. But
let's see. We actually haven't ever done part 2 with anybody, but kind of many people have actually mentioned it. So why not now when we think about it? So, but where was I? Yes. So yeah, I want to thank you, and remember to like, share, and subscribe. No, scribe. And yeah.
This
so
is the first time
I
you
was
said
Niilo
it well,
Tarnanen.
bro. Yeah.
Well, I hope so.
Great.
And I'm co-hosting this with Mate Georgiou.
You forgot to say about the click
see you next time.
Whatever. But yeah, click the bell or whatever it's that. Yeah, also. Okay. Yes, but thank you,
well,
everybody.
Completely lost our stiffness. Yeah. Okay, but it was a nice episode, I must say, and farewell, everybody, and hope you have a nice time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.